Hello everyone, and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. Today's husband and wife talk day, and so we thought that it'd be appropriate to make sure we do not disregard what just recently happened, which is the separation of Bill and Melinda Gates. Sadly, after over just 27 years, they are calling it to an end, or just separating is what we would want to say. And really for us, because we have just passed over that mark as well, it was important for us to reflect upon it, just not speaking on what's happening on behalf of the Bill and Melinda Gates family, you know, that's their business, but really reflecting it upon our own relationship. Again, hopefully this will be short, whatever you hear upon our message together, where Gerald will start first and then I'll conclude it at the end. We're really always hoping to give you light, give you strength, a moment to ponder, and really with the hopes of always striving for that right direction, whatever it may be in your life. So thank you so much for listening in, and as always, we hope that you get something out of this that will continue to empower you and your family and your togetherness. Okay, so today, Gerald, the question is going to be really focusing in on the unfortunate separation of Bill Gates and Melinda Gates. And so I'm calling it When a Powerhouse Browns Out, because, you know, 27 years, that's a lot of years.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah. And so my first question to you is, what is your take, or what are your thoughts about men who leave a long-term relationship? Basically, they want to start a new life, or in some cases, to continue another life with someone else. What's your thoughts on that? Why do you think that happens?
Why do I think that happens? I think there could be a number of different reasons, and it could vary based off the individual. Mm-hmm. But for starters, I would think that maybe the person wants to fulfill something. Mm-hmm. And the other part would be possibly there's something wrong with the relationship where that the person who wants to leave isn't being satisfied, or their needs are not being met. Yeah. Right? Mm-hmm. So from there, you know, they'll maybe possibly look outside the marriage to get those needs met. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's that. Okay. So that's your answer for the first one. Now, what's interesting to me is then coming to find out that it says, on the other hand, it has been noted that women leave so that they can finally pursue their own passion or plans once kids are out of the house. Now, from what I understand, it's like the Gates had actually waited until their youngest child was 18 or past the age of 18. So why do you think women have a different outlook in that, in ending a marriage? What would you say, from a male perspective, what do you think a man could do now to prepare ahead so that this doesn't happen where the woman decides to end the marriage? Because in this case, it was the Melinda Gates who actually decided to end this, right? So what do you think a man
was
should
she? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So in regards to following one's passion, I don't think that's something specific for women. I could see men actually wanting to do the same thing, possibly, right? They could be married with someone,
this is really definitely vice versa.
They have other passions or other experiences they may want to have, you know, and possibly the person or the partner they're with, the person they're married with, may not fall in regards to either accepting or being in a way or of something they might want to do, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't really say that that's just a woman thing.
No, I agree with you, because
I'm pretty sure there's probably a percentage of men that would feel the same way.
Generally speaking, the greater percentage, you know, lean towards men wanting to leave to start a new life, where the woman really wants to pursue more of a life they never had in their career or their plans. So I guess the last question, you know, this is going to be fairly quick, is, so if one was to follow through ending a long-term marriage, what are some things to consider, knowing that we've been together? And it's kind of like a celebration for us, like, wow, we've really passed this 27 years, but it can go any other time. Like, you know, years are just a number, right? Every day takes work. So what would you suggest are some things to consider if someone was thinking about ending a marriage?
I think the first thing is definitely weigh out the pros and cons. You know, there's a saying that people say, it's not always greener on the other side. you know, and sometimes if you lose something that it takes you to lose it to find out that it's valuable, and it may be too late to actually retrieve it back, right? You know, so I would think that the first major thing is really looking at the pros and cons and weighing those out and trying to see if you can actually work with your partner to work through whatever issues you may currently have.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So, and also the other thing I feel that's very important is also taking consideration of the people who can be affected by the separation, right? And is it worth it, right? You know?
And, you know, how long do you think a person should really think about these things? Because sometimes it could be something that's impulse, right? When things become too heavy.
Yeah,
you know?
I think it's going to vary based off the person.
Yeah.
But I would think that, I would say that it would vary based on the person. So I don't think you can really put a specific date or time frame in regards to that.
Yeah, no, that's good. Yeah, you're right.
You know?
Right. Yeah. And
but I would say definitely talking it out and you know, and discussing that is very important. You know, I remember a couples that I've talked to, and men, it mentioned to me in regards to some that have separated and some stuck it out.
Yeah.
And some of the ones that are sticking out, their perspective on things were, you know, well, if I leave my current relationship or marriage, right? Yeah. And I'm with someone else, well, now I have to learn all the ins and outs of this person, right? And at the end of the day, it may be worse than what they had before.
That is so true. I mean, you know,
and I shouldn't say worse, right?
No,
but that's just, you know,
harder, more difficult,
challenging. And they mentioned at least with the person they're with, they already know the ins and outs, so you know, they can start working with that. And also, I believe at the end of the day, really, for the most part, I think a person's happiness, I think that person is responsible for their own happiness and not another person.
And we said that, right? Yeah.
So, I think starting with that part, and if you're not happy with yourself, it's going to be happy for you to be happy with anybody.
That's a good point, because you're always asking someone else to fill you.
You know what I mean?
You're always expecting someone else. And then it's always someone else's fault why you're not happy, not realizing you're coming in not even fully happy at all. And so that's not fair for someone else to have to carry that load or try to fill your emptiness, right?
Yeah.
So that's a really good point.
And if you go with, if your relationship really is unconditional love, right?
Which is tough.
Yeah, I would think that you would find a way to work it out, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So, especially in your later years. I mean, what the heck?
No, well, and that's the tough part.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, goodness, you put so much into something, and then when do you go, enough is enough, I am not able to do this anymore, and then you're like willing to let it all go. It's, you know, anyway, it's really interesting.
But life's about experiences, right? And at the end of the day, I feel that, you know, the person is responsible for their own happiness. So
absolutely. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much for your time, Gerald.
You are welcome, Anne.
See you next time.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye. Well, there it is, Gerald's perspective on just the recent announcement of Bill and Melinda Gates separating, really taking in what they call the gray divorce in one of the articles that I read. And so for me, it's always interesting to hear what he has to say, because he comes from such male dominance, and having been married to him for over 30, you know, almost really going into that 30-year mark. I mean, in fact, just recently we were just thinking to ourselves, wow, you know, Bill and Melinda Gates having ended theirs just after 27 years, we passed that mark, and yet we've heard people who have divorced even after that. So it's just a number, and yet it's still a very, very long time of commitment. So we don't want to disregard those years, and yet it gives us that moment of reflection to really go, okay, well, where are we at this moment, and what do we have to say about the reasons why people do at the very, you know, almost, I mean, very end of their years of marriage, just say, you know what, this is it, and we are going our separate ways. So it was interesting to me, the question that I asked Gerald was, you know, in the very beginning, is that when I read this article, based off of their reports, they had come to arrive that the men in a relationship typically will end a relationship because they want to start a new life, or sadly they want to continue a life they've already been committing themselves to with someone else. And so they're ready to end the relationship that they have perhaps really committed to it all the way up to when the kids were old enough to then move on and away from. And for women, it is more of they've committed to the relationship and yet they are ready to move on and then do them, right? It's like the women is saying, you know what, let me go ahead and go to my career path, what I've always planned for myself. I have been really just giving all of me to my children, to my spouse, and now it's my time and my turn to think about me and pursue all the many things that I've set aside just so that I could raise the family, just so I could go ahead and continue on with this marriage. And so for me, my take in all of this is every relationship is different. I could tell you that Gerald and I are having a perfect relationship because at this given moment, maybe at that time, my heart and my spirit's telling me, oh, everything is so perfect. And yet there's that given moment. Anyone who's ever been in a relationship for a long time know that's just like a snap of a finger. One moment you're truly in love and you're looking at each other with fire in your eyes, and the next day or the next moment, you can't even look at each other because you're just trying really hard not to be angry. And there's so many mixed emotions that can tie into the longer you are with someone, and that's the reality of it. And honestly, I believe that Gerald and I have been together for this long because we have been very open and with each other's emotions and feelings from the beginning. You got to remember, we married early. Even before that, we met early. And so for us, we had always kind of had that really just that kind of a friendship to start off with, where we were real with one another. Some people may think, oh my goodness, you guys, do everything together. You guys are too honest with each other, and you guys speak in a way that we would never speak. And yet, most of those relationships are no longer together that have placed that type of opinion on us. And there are times when it's good for people to say those things because it does make you reflect. I remember one time a married woman had stated, you guys do everything together. That's not healthy. And Gerald and I came to the terms, we tried, and we were like, okay, well, maybe you should go with your friends and you should go with your friends. And we missed each other. And we realized that we're that kind of person. We enjoy going to the grocery store together. We enjoy walking to the park together. And, even if it's just something simple, we take our kids in the car, we do things, we're just that way. We're a unit. Now, some people may think that's not healthy and you shouldn't be able to do that and you're just going to be sick of each other. And I would like to think that's what kept us together, is that we were true to our own game, to our own game plan, and that we made sure that we followed through with our own plans. Anytime that anybody else then got involved and then all of a sudden we started to take into account what they were thinking and we were trying to make it different because we thought maybe different is the right thing, it somehow didn't feel right. And so what we came back to, and now going into this third decade of marriages, we just have to be us, and we just have to be really committed to what we think is right in our relationship. And so, even though the Bill and Melinda Gates family, marriage did not last or is coming to an end, they came to that amicable understanding with one another. And from what I heard, they had already talked it over. And so that's their business. And I am not here to say that I'm going to last forever. That is my intent, though. And Gerald and I have already shared that with you, is that we're committed to the very end. And yet we have bumped heads so many times. I am very much, when it comes to my own opinions, I'm quite rigid, and so is Gerald. And so we are just those that don't give. And I know our kids have really worked to tame us sometimes, because man, it's like a debate all the time. But I remember my parents doing the same thing, where they were not afraid to speak their mind. And so that works for us. In some relationships, it is better, things that are better left unsaid is what works for them. So my advice to really relationships that are coming in who may be afraid, because our pastor just recently said that there's, a heightened, it's an increase of people now deciding not to get married. And also there's an increase of people deciding not to have kids, because those are two fear factors that perhaps that the world is starting to arrive to, and thinking, well, gosh, that's going to cause problems. And yet it is the greatest challenge, and yet the most reward. For every time that I overcome a challenge or a struggle in my relationship, it has made me stronger. It has also made me find myself even more, and made me realize who I am alone as a person, and also as a wife and as a mother, and perhaps as a friend as well. Because let's face it, at least for me, I'm not great at every one of them, but every day I get to try again, and I get to try again, and I get to try again. And it's the same thing as like being an educator. No one is perfect, right? I even told my own students that there is no great mathematician out there, or master mathematician, because there are still problems, math problems left unsolved. And there are people who've retired to just work on one problem or two problems for the rest of life, hoping that they will be that one to solve that problem. Think about a marriage. It's in that same light that you are always challenged to go, maybe I'm going to get it right today. Maybe I'm going to get it right today. And so with that said, for those of you who are contemplating on, taking that next step, whatever that step may be that you are hesitating upon, there's never going to be a right time. There's never going to be a perfect book. Trust me on that, because there are going to be moments where your emotions are going to be so strong, they're going to be tested, and you would just hope that there's going to be a time for you to restore. I come from a family where we didn't talk about our problems. We just kind of moved on. And then I carried that on to my relationship, where I realized, wait a minute, I've got to learn how to restore. And so, it's now we're going into our third decade, and we're going into that learning of how do we restore? How do we just not ignore the situation where it builds up to then all of a sudden where we feel like, okay, there's animosity being built rather than love. So again, make your relationship work, keep working at it. And if you're not feeling like you're getting it right, just hang in there. And before you let go, I believe that there's a reason why they make people wait before they actually sign that final paper to say we're done, because there's that opportunity to go, okay, now that you've kind of decompressed, do you really want to do this? Do you really want to say goodbye to all of those years that you put into? No matter what, are you willing to then move forward and go, I'm okay with having made all of that sacrifice, all of that commitment, and now moving forward without that other? And I don't know, for me, at this point, I just really hope to never be never be ready. And Jill and I have talked about that. Gosh, just every one of you out there, just do what you can to make it right. And if you don't even have a definition of that right, go in that direction where it feels right. And for yourself, for your partner, your spouse, your children, just go with it. Have faith that everything will work out, and no judgment upon whatever decision you make. Just make sure it's one that you have decided upon your own as a team, and that you have really taken in consideration all that could be impacted from the decision you make. And life is about giving, right? It's not always about taking. And most of the time when it comes to love, there's a lot of give. So with that said, in the words of my mother, God bless us all. May one of our words, a few of our words, or hopefully this whole thing has made you think in the right light, in the right direction, in the right mind, in the right spirit, with the right heart. And that's all we hope for. Thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time. Thank you.